Hi, what you're looking at here is a drawing I just made, and I decided to do a voiceover for it. You can see I didn't record the background. I did this quick black and white sketch and decided I love this, I need to share it with all of you, so I did. There are two characters in this drawing. One's name is Marcos, he is a cat boy, and the other is Zazin, who is a fluffy dragon furry. I'm not sure how much I'll go into my actual process here, and how much I'll just be, well, talking about lore. God, that was awful. You'll see that Marcos here has some really interesting wings. I don't know how to explain those. I don't have too much commentary for the line art section, not much real advice. What I really pride myself in is my coloring process. You'll see here I really struggle with having these arms be crossed, because while I draw characters with crossed arms all the time, they usually don't have muscles. They are usually skin and bones. So this was a bit of a challenge for me. I ended up just crossing my own arms and just constantly doing that, going back to drawing and then looking back to figure out the forms. I noticed the main thing I was struggling with is I kept drawing the arms parallel when they need to be like folded in. Like, your arms aren't at a 90-degree angle when they're folded, they're at an acute angle. Zazin here, he has some markings. They're like sort of electric, but he was born with them. They're complicated. Zazin is not my character, he belongs to someone else, so I can't go into that too much. Now Marcos is entirely mine, he's the cat boy, so I can go into him a lot. He's been through a lot. Oh, warning, he does have some self-harm scars, so if you don't want to see that much later in the video, you should probably click off. The scars on his face aren't from that, but the scars that will be on his arms are sort of, he was possessed by a demon, it was a whole thing. I struggle a lot with Marcos's eyes, like I don't finish my eye design until well into the coloring process, so that's interesting. You can see he has a scar. That came from his dad. It was a whole plot line I had. All of the lore for these characters, none of it is written down. It is basically entirely in my head, which is just how it goes. You'll see Marcos here has a cloak. An interesting thing that I always keep in mind whenever I'm drawing clothes is how thick the clothes are. Marcos's cloak is very thick. It's like wool or felt. So I don't put in as tight of folds as I do with his pants, which are a pretty thin fabric. You'll see me struggling a bit with his shoes. I don't have any advice for shoes except for good luck and use reference. You saw earlier that I added a bunch of pins to his jacket. Those have a bunch of lore behind them. The one with wings, that is an apprentice lorekeeper pin. The circle one, that is a guardian's pin. And the heart one is a little carved pin that was made by his daughter. I add some laces here. I usually make my laces just simple, like one line, but here I added two. I'm not sure why, other than I just felt like it. All the pauses are because I'm actually taking time to stretch my hands so I don't get carpal tunnel, because I don't want that. And also, my hands just hurt. This line art you see me doing, I was doing that at midnight, 1 a.m. and I wanted to go to bed, but I'm like, no, I'm in the process, I can't stop. Zaz's cloak here, it's a very interesting design designed by my partner. It has the same grooves that he has through his skin, and they're actually connected. Those grooves are also technically arteries. It's very interesting. A little bit of body horror, but we love body horror here. You'll see that Zazen also has a pin like Marcos has. It was also made by Alia because Alia loves both of her dads. You'll see there's a little face on it. It actually does just say dad on it, but it was so small that I decided to simplify it to that. Hair is so tricky. Again, I don't have much advice. I do gotta say, I love drawing hair and fur. It is just the most fun thing. So if you have any like furry characters you're interested in having me draw, I'll definitely give you a discount for what I want to draw. You'll see me adding some line art to the background now here. Now this structure actually has a lot of lore behind it. Short version, there is this kingdom of lizard people. They've been around for a very long time, and these are ruins from an old war camp. They've been around for like nearly 100 years, but the reason they haven't like rotted despite basically no maintenance is because these lizard people wrap all of their wood in their scales, and somehow that makes it extra strong. You'll see that I have little bits of like basically where it's cut out. That's basically just how I draw. It's not exactly rotted wood, but it's probably been like chewed on by some animals. The background here, in my head, what those were originally made of was either some very thin wood sheets or actually some sort of fabric that has been infused with clay, but it has since pretty much rotted away. Yeah. Oh, my voice is tired. What you'll see me doing here is trying to figure out the background that will go behind it. I struggle a lot with this, but that luckily means I have a lot more to say. All that zooming out you're seeing is me trying to get the general idea of what's going on. You'll see that doesn't really work. What I'm doing right now is I actually went outside to my backyard and took tons of reference pictures of just the woods I have, and those end up basically saving my life. I eyedropper a lot of colors at the start, which I don't actually end up using, but it still is helpful. A lot of what you're seeing here gets deleted, but it was still helpful because this is stuff I don't have a lot of experience in drawing. So it's just giving me a bit more experience before I do it for the real thing. Something that you'll see me do here is with the stuff in the background, I make it extremely light and undersaturated. Like, I have this instinct where for the farther back something is, you want it, darker, but in reality, if it's not nighttime, the farther back something is, usually, like, the lighter it is and the closer it is to the color of the sky. I don't know why that is, but, like, if you ever, like, are in a place with, like, mountains or something and you look out, you'll notice this. The thing I'm doing with the shading on the street, and you'll see that with the rest of the shading, is, so I don't use multiply layers. I know a lot of people do. It's a really neat shortcut, but I am just messing with that eyedropper tool. I'm using custom brushes here. The custom brushes are really easy to make. You'll see me making one for the wood pattern later. They're pretty easy. I suppose I could put the files for them, like, in the comments if anyone is interested, but they're so easy to make that really I would encourage you to just make your own. You'll see me there. I made the grass a bit too green because you'll notice if you go outside, like, most grass and plants and stuff is more of a yellow green than a blue green. So when I mess it up, instead of free drawing everything, I just mess with the hues. And now, as you'll see, everything in the background is just going to get covered right up. You'll see I started with a lot of really warm colors here, but that didn't really end up sticking. I try to keep warm colors for where the light source is coming from, and then I use a lot of cooler colors and almost like blues and purples for where my shadows are. I'm sure you've seen this a lot, and if you're an experienced artist, this might be obvious to you, but the further I push in my color differences, the more I tend to like my art. Right there, I filled that in, and then I'm just punching out the holes for where the siding has rotted away. The reason that I filled it all in and then added the holes instead of starting with just drawing the outline is because due to the background, it's actually very difficult for me to see my line art. I then shaded the inside just because I thought it looked nice. And I'll end up adding a bunch more later. You will also see that I added a bunch of green to the shaded like inside siding. This is because if you look at like rotted roofing, it always has like some sort of green moss on it, and I wanted to add that. You'll see what I just did with the lasso tool there was I added more shading to break up the silhouette. Oh, here, this is when I made my custom brushes. So the wood, it has a scale texture to it due to the lore of how it was made. I just don't want to draw that in. So what I do is I make a simple pattern, and then I'll copy it, and then you can see me messing with the settings on the side until I have a brush I like. It's a very subtle effect, and I'm not sure it really even adds too much to the drawing, but it's important to the lore of the picture, and I like adding extra details that don't really matter. It's fun. That's really the reason I draw. You'll see this is the second to last time I messed with that eye. I thought about changing up his facial expression there because it seemed a little bland, but I ended up going against it. You'll see I'm looking at possibly adding facial hair to this character, Marcos. I ended up going against it. I decide that maybe once he's older in my story, then I'll add it. But I do add a bit of a sideburn, just to add something to it. All of the colors I have for these characters have already been decided a very long time in advance. When I'm doing an illustration like this, I am never figuring out the design of the character as I'm making the thing. I always have the design figured out first in some sort of sketch or whatever. I briefly considered making the laces gold, as you saw there, but I eventually made it the same color as his pants. Zazen here, he can be a bit of a difficult character to draw and make look right, because his clothes is a lot of blacks, and then he's got that white fur. So it's very difficult to make everything the right shades of black, and especially because the black is next to the white, everything looks darker and brighter than it really should be. That can actually be helpful though, because I don't have to make the black as dark of a black due to it being on the white. And pretty soon, if I keep talking, black and white are gonna stop sounding like words. One thing I do, if you'll notice looking on the side, is I have every single sort of color / material on a different layer. A lot of people don't recommend this, but due to the way that I shade things, I think it works better for me. I have a computer that can handle all of the layers But of course, if you have like an iPad, then this probably isn't the best move. You'll see me shading in Zaz here. Fur, I find pretty easy to shade. It can be difficult, but I love doing it so much, it's sort of become easy for me. I suppose I could do a full fur shading tutorial eventually, but enough people have already done those. Here, I start trying to shade Marcos's skin, which is a hell of a lot more difficult. You'll see I try this so many times, it ends up being the last thing I end up shading. Like everything you see me doing here, I get rid of that. I end up doing everything else first. It doesn't really look that bad, but like, to me, like when I'm drawing it, it just doesn't look good enough. A thing you'll see me always trying to do is add more color and depth to my skin, because I like my skin being more, I guess, oversaturated, I suppose. I eventually give up and start working on his cloak, which is much easier. You'll notice this, is that like the darker I make the shadows, the more blue I have it. It's the thing I mentioned earlier, but I just think it looks so much nicer. One thing like I keep in mind while drawing this is, so Marcos is getting lit from behind here, so I have the front of him being a lot darker than I would usually draw it. Here I tried to do effects with some dappled lighting, but I ended up just sort of deleting all of it because I hated it. I fill in his pants the same way, but one thing you might notice I do on the pants is then I add in a highlight color that is more warm. That's me filling in the shirt and things. Alright, next I try working on the hair. Hair, for some reason, for me, is so much more difficult than fur, and I don't understand why. I still love it, but even though his head is basically just fur, I find it insanely more difficult. For most of my shading I've been using a brush, but now for this I'm using a pencil brush. My words aren't making sense, are they? I just sort of mess with things so it looks like. You'll see I sort of up the saturation on his head a bit more just because I like it. Here, I think this is when I finally figure out what the hell I want his skin to look like. You'll notice the inside of the ears, I have it being bright, and that's because, there's obviously no sun shining on it, but there is sun shining through it. Here you'll see me working on his scars, and his lips. Lips are difficult. This around now is when I draw on those self-harm scars, so yeah. It's a little thing, but I know it can trigger some people, so I mention it. You'll see I go back for his hair. I add some shininess, but hair is only really shiny if it's really, smooth. If it's fluffy, it's not gonna be the shiny stuff you see in your normal anime hair. Marcos' eyes are always fun to color in. You'll notice I switch everything up. This is the final time I work on the eyes, just because they weren't looking down the right way. I'm not sure if you can see it, because this screen is pretty small, but I'm working on a huge screen and I could tell. You'll see I finally found out the color of his laces. The next thing I do is the shading for all of Zaz's clothes, and you'll see I really struggle with shading his pants. I don't know why, but you'll see me put stuff in and delete it several times. Drawing stuff that's grays, whites, and stuff can be confusing, especially with my shading style, because if you do it wrong, it just ends up looking blue. But if I want it to be vibrant, what I end up having to do is It's not that I make it less blue, I just add in a bunch more of several other colors. I'm not sure if I did that too effectively here, but I tried. I overshaded Zazen's nails there. Like, I shaded them more than would make sense for the drawing, because otherwise they were too bright and it was sort of drawing your eye away. I start working on the sort of skin of Marcos's wings here. You'll see they're very tattered and torn, and I do copy paste them over because the sides are meant to be identical. You'll see I mess with a lot of layer effects because there's a lot of lore I have about how the wings work and how they're meant to sort of glow in moonlight, but I end up not doing most of that because I just don't think it looks right. I make the background really bright and I add in a glow, like, coming through the things as you see there. Holes, the word is holes. I'm adding in a bunch of rays of light, and like, you can use like a lighten layer, I suppose, but for this, it is literally just the same color at a lowered opacity. I add in some dust just for that dust effect, and we're getting pretty close to done here. I do some shading there because I thought it was sort of standing out a bit. I signed the picture, and that's it. You've been on YouTube long enough, you know all the buttons you're supposed to press. I have my commissions open, so check out my DeviantArt. Bye!